Last week and for the next several weeks, we hear the stories of Luke calling us to real discipleship. There's a Catholic theologian, Ronald Rollhauser, who has some great lines, and one of them he says about this gospel, he says, the Lord is challenging us. He says, we are called not to be admirers of Jesus, but to be disciples. That's an interesting comment, isn't it? To stop being admirers of Jesus and become disciples. Don't just follow because it seems honorable, respectable to be Christian, but recognize that what you are really called is to live a different life, to become this disciple. I think Rollhauser has it right. We have a country, a nation, a culture, a world who likes to admire the words of Jesus but doesn't want to integrate them into being disciples. So how do you move it? And you look at today's gospel, 5 people. 2 are already at least bearing the title disciples, but 3 others who are wrestling with that call. And the Lord is challenging them and, of course, us to say, are you just admiring the Lord, just liking His words, just feeling comfortable in His church, or are you moving toward discipleship, a different commitment, another step in the journey toward Christ? Look at the first 2. They are James and John, already bearing the title. But look at their reaction. They are in a foreign land. They are making the preparation for Christ to come through Samaria. They reach the area and they find resistance. Not just resistance, hostility. The people do not want them, nor this rabbi, Jesus, in their land. They would rather he go another route, for he's going to Jerusalem, a place of their enemy. So when they meet the resistance, when they find that they are not welcome, they are angry. And so they say, Lord, let us call down fire. Let's destroy them. And the Lord is shocked. He says, really? That's what you want me to do, destroy them? That is not the message. They bear the title, but they don't have the heart of the disciple. And then you and I have to look inside ourselves. Surely that's not part of me, Lord. All right, I'll ask you, what happened the last time someone cut you off on 90? Someone that zipped in front of you when you were waiting and you had your blinker on to turn into that parking spot at Crocker Park. How did you feel? Where there was a gesture of your hand somewhere in that car? That's that retaliation, isn't it? There's that anger that wells up in me. I don't even think, it's automatic. I want to get back. You hurt me, I'm going to hurt you. You said this, I'll say that. And the Lord is saying, that's not the way of the disciple. That's not the way you live. And it's calling me out of my own self-centeredness, out of my own sense of vengeance, out of an old culture of violence that says, will you perpetuate that? Will you continue that for another generation? Or will there not be at least some way of muting that sense, that retaliation? It is hard to do, but the Lord is calling these 2 men and all of us in the same way. How can you reconcile anger, hostility, and revenge with being called to discipleship? Now, that does not mean I allow others to harm me or do violence against me, not at all. But it doesn't give me permission to retaliate in like manner, to harm in a similar way, to inflict hurt in the same depth. So these 2 are called, and you and I say, look at yourself. Is there still that sense of vindictiveness, vengeance, getting back, payback, in your face attitude? It is not part of discipleship. It's moving from that to faithfulness. And then you look at the others. There is the first one. He is not so much called, but he likes what Jesus must have said. He likes this rabbi. He likes the crowds that are gathered. It is a safe place to be. There are many who are following, many who are saying, this is the one. I want to be on the bandwagon. And so the Lord says, oh, you want to be comfortable. You want to be with me. You want to be with the crowd. I'm going to tell you, even though foxes have a place to lay down and birds have a place to nest, you will not feel comfortable when you follow me. Now, what does that mean? You and I have, or many of us, have grown comfortable with our culture, our society. And shame on us in many ways For the Lord's values are not those of our society or culture. We decry certain values, but we embrace others. And the Lord is saying, how can you be comfortable when there are still many who are marginalized? When we still say it's all right to hate others just because of their culture, their orientation, because of their faith dimension, because of different things they do. We can marginalize hate, and I can use them as an object for violence. How can I accept that part of our culture? He says to this man, you will not be comfortable if you follow me, or you shouldn't be. How can you be comfortable when there are still some hungry, still some without shelter, still some who are impoverished or enslaved, and you and I don't say or do anything? The Christian must stand up in solidarity with those who are marginalized. We do it all the time in charity and works, but there is more we can do, calling us to the corporal and spiritual works of our church, to be worried, concerned about those imprisoned, to make sure those who are hungry are somehow fed, those who are marginalized are not victims of violence. And yet we have grown comfortable allowing it. We just shrug our shoulders and say, that's the way it is. That's what he is challenging the man. How can you really be a disciple when you do not work for justice or peace among all God's people? And then you see the other one, the one who comes to him. He is called by the Lord, but he says, let me just go home and bury my father. A reasonable request. And in fact, the Lord has done that before. Didn't he raise the son of a widowed mother? Doesn't he go to the funeral of Lazarus, to his friends Martha and Mary? It is not Christ saying, do not worry about the dead or comfort the dying and those who mourn. He is saying instead, you're using an excuse here. You're saying, let me put off following you while I can do this. Let me put this off for just a little while, and then I'll be right there, Lord. I'll call you. You're the first on my email. I'll really reply. I'm right there. Now, think about what happens in many families today. If I were to ask another generation, and I would say, you have children, you have grandchildren, and you are preparing for the 4th of July, or you're trying to get them together for a reunion this summer. You call them, but probably more to the point, you text them, and you email them, and you say, well, I want you all to gather. Your father, your mother, and I are gathering with your grandparents, your aunt and uncle, your brothers and sisters. Can you be here? And then you wait for the reply. Do you get it? No, you don't get it. When you're planning for a holiday, for Christmas, for Easter, well, I'd like you to gather here. We're going to join here. When are you going to come in? I want to make sure we can all be together. You wait for the reply. It doesn't come till the last minute. Why? They're waiting for a better offer? Not really. They'll get to it. I'll be right there with you. There's not a sense of urgency. Oh, they'll be there. They're my family. I can tell them that. Yeah, that's okay. I'll be right there, Lord. I know you won't abandon me, so I'll get to you when I can. It's the Lord saying there's an urgency about this message. It's not, I will change my behavior. I'll quit that addiction. I'll change the way I'm treating other people. I'll finally reconcile with this one as soon as I have the time. As soon as my calendar is empty, I'll get right to that, Lord. I know it's urgent. I know I should, but I'm not there yet, Lord. I'll be right there. You see, he's challenging them. What are you putting off that you know needs attention? What addiction continues to rule your life? What hatred, what unreconciled relationship lies broken? Where is it that you and I know I need to begin to follow the Lord in this way and not that way? I need to turn away from that, and I still don't do it. That's let the dead bury the dead. Don't keep making excuses and putting it off. And then finally, there's the one who says, I just want to go back home. Say goodbye. That too is reasonable. And the Lord there is often allowing his disciples to go back home. Doesn't he go to the home of Peter and help his mother-in-law regain her health? He is not against the family being involved. What he is doing is challenging them to say, is this your decision or someone else's? Is this your faith? Or is it someone who gave it to you? Somewhere in our lives, we have to stand up and say, this is what I believe. This is what I know to be true. This is the way I want to walk with my life. These are the values that will shape my living. That's not easy to do. Shape my life by value. Walk in this way. It should be my decision. Aren't you and I impressed when every year we are blessed to have adults who come before us in the RCIA and say, I want to walk with the Lord. I want to be baptized. I want to follow Christ. I want to be that witness. And some of us should feel a little uncomfortable at seeing that fervor, that strength, that encouragement when I don't have it myself. I need to have that commitment of personal faith. Unless my faith is a personal commitment to the Lord, how will it guide me, lead me? How will it be that compass that gets me through tough times and dark moments? I need that commitment. I need the heart of a disciple. I need the Lord to dwell within me, not outside in all the trappings of Christianity. It must be the heart of it. So you see, Luke, this week, as he has before and will in the next few, is challenging us to say, some of you put on Christianity and you admire the Lord, but you're not taking in the heart of a disciple or leading in the path of a follower. Maybe it's time we stop making excuses, stop trying to live one life and profess another. It's time to stop being the admirer and become the disciple.